Screen and board. Okay, looks like we are connected, and I want to welcome you to class number 2, Biblical Hebrew in Plain Language. If you have completed your homework, if you would pass that up. If you haven't, it's okay. This is not a 4-credit class, but the reason that we do homework is so that you learn the stuff that you were told about in class. You won't learn it if you just listen. You'll need to actually do it, and it gives me a gauge as to who needs help. So if you turn in a homework assignment and it's 40% correct, I might call you and say, "Hey, do you need help with chapter 4? If you're having struggles with chapter 4, I understand." If it's your first time here, then I recommend that you do what these guys have done. Either just do your homework on paper, put your name on it, or photocopy your workbook for your own use, and do like this person has done, and they made copies, because what I don't want you to do is do it in the workbook and then razor knife it and take care of the pages out. The book's not set up that way. You can do it that way if you want to, and you put your pages into a 3-ring binder at the end of the term, and you'll have a binder. But this is fine for me. You can just turn it in on paper, and it'll be just great. Okay, so before we get started, I want to give you another resource. I mentioned last week Dr. Bill Barrick. This is his webpage, drbarrick.org. Okay, I have here a copy of his Hebrew grammar that is available free on his website. Okay, he has 2 years or more. Thanks, Tim. He has 2 years or more of video instruction where he teaches seminary classes at the Master's Seminary. I've had Hebrew from several teachers, and Dr. Barrick's Hebrew grammar instruction, although I'm going to do mine differently than he does his, is the best quality Hebrew instruction that I have received. I'm going to add some things that I thought were beneficial from other places, but his was better than the Hebrew instruction I received in seminary in person, where I could ask questions of the professor. And so I wanted early to give you the resource, drbarrick.org. You can find him on YouTube too, but everything is here, including the grammar. Now, this grammar is 2004, 2005, and I called Grace Books International, try to buy it. It would have been your curriculum if it were in print. It's not in print. But he put it on his website. You can print it for free. This one, 2005, is keyed to his YouTube lectures. It's the one he's using in 2005. But he's in class even. He was making corrections to the book, and the most updated book is the 2012 edition. It's on there also. All of the accenting stuff that we talk about, that the Prodigo Van Pelt book doesn't really deal with, we're going to deal with. I got that information from the Dr. Barrick material. Okay, and so if you got questions about that, I think it's chapter 5 in this book. Flipping back, accents and review of syllables, chapter 5. It's there if you need to read it. If your learning style is visual, you need to read it. Great. I just want to offer that to you. You don't have to look at this, and you don't have to go to drbarrick.org. You don't have to watch his videos. You will get everything you need in this class. But, once this class is over, it's a fantastic resource and probably take your Hebrew to the next level. This will supplement the class. If you get confused or lost about something, you can go check him out. But the only weakness there, besides the fact that we're using different pronunciation, the only weakness is if there's a lot of videos and you won't necessarily know which video the material you're looking for is in, because those videos are real classroom. Just like right now, I'm not talking about the subject for today. I'm talking about something else. He does that. He'll be talking about a passage of Scripture or what have you. So sometimes it's hard if you're going to go look at which YouTube video is it to find the lecture on this. That's a little difficult, but worth the hunt if you're teaching yourself Hebrew going further. Okay, so that's enough of that. Let's get to Genesis chapter 1. If it is your first day with us, we're going to teach this class using a combination of inductive and deductive methods. I talked about that at length last week. What we're really going to do is we're going to spend the first third of each class in a biblical text, because that's where You'll remember it forever if you remember this sentence. If you know this sentence, then you'll never forget that vowel or those words or that verb construction. You will learn it all here in the text. Then when we come across it in the grammar, it's easy for you to have a place to hang that. I like to think of the Hebrew Bible text as the canvas, and then the deductive portions, the outlines and the charts and the rules that are in the language book, they're the paint. And so you need some canvas for the paint to stick to, or otherwise it's just a rush of color going by. Gee, I wish I understood what Chad was talking about. It's been 3 days since class and now I can't remember. Everybody good? Okay, so we're going to take a few minutes and we're going to just read aloud the first sentence in Genesis 1:1. I'm going to do it one word at a time. Bereshit, bara, Elohim, et, Hashemayim, va'et, haaretz. Again. Bereshit, bara, Elohim, et, Hashemayim, va'et, haaretz. Now let me translate that for you, okay? In the beginning, or when God first began to, in the beginning, bara, this is a verb, created, he created, but the subject of the verb is here, Elohim, God. In the beginning, God created. Et you don't translate. Et is what's called a direct object marker. Who's had Greek? Anybody had Greek? Jessica, no? No Greek. Okay, won't worry about that. This tells you that the next word is the object of the verb. In the beginning, God created what? The heavens and what? The earth. Okay? See how that works? See, the Hebrew verb order the word order we'll get to later. It's not the same as English. In the beginning, created God. So in the beginning, God created. What did he create? Look for the et. There it is. Hashemayim, va'et. Spoiler alert, that's your word and haaretz. Okay, these two words have something in common. What are they? They both begin with a hey. A hey. Correct. They both begin with a hey. You probably can't see where I'm pointing, can you, Dan?
I can see.
I'll do it up here. I'll do it up here. These two words, Hashemayim and haaretz, begin with a hey. Let's just read this translation again. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That hey is attached to the beginning of a word. It also has a couple other things like, and I missed it. There should be a dagesh in this sheet because the article, the word the, is the letter hey, the vowel patak, and a dagesh forte in the next consonant. Don't worry about that. You're going to learn that in like 5 weeks from now. But I just want to show it to you so you can understand what you're looking at. Bereshit, bara, Elohim, et Hashemayim, va'et haaretz. I want you to memorize that. So let's say the whole thing together. Bereshit, bara, Elohim, et Hashemayim, va'et haaretz. Great. There's more I can tell you there, and I will. I'll tell you a little bit more. See the green? The green are accents. Most printed Hebrew texts, like in a prayer book, aren't going to have these. Okay? But they're helpful. I learned these late. They are covered in the last chapter in this book. I wish I had learned them early, because these tell you which syllable of the word is accented. And this one, the athnai, tells you the most important word in a sentence. The main point, usually this divides the sentence in half, is right here. In the beginning, God. That's the point. We can argue about, was it 7 days, was it 7 literal days? Well, how do we count a day if the world's not revolving around the sun yet? But that's not the point. The point is, in the beginning, God created. And there, that little triangle, that little arrowhead, is an athnai. That's an accent. This is basically a period. Not really, but it's the end of the verse. the end of the verse, called a sop pasuk. And before it, you'll oftentimes find this little green line called a salute. And that tells you this is the last accented syllable in the sentence. Don't worry about that. I went really fast because it's not today's subject. You're going to get accents as we go inductively, okay? But I can tell from the rehearsal of this verse that you guys recognize the letters. Do you not? Mm-hmm. What is this letter, Jim?
Bet.
Bet. Everybody see that? Everyone agree? Good. How about this one, Dan?
Dalet.
Looks like a dalet, kind of, doesn't it? But if it were a dalet, it would have a little tail back here.
Yeah.
This is, I put a little wave to my resh. I put a little wave to my resh, and I make my dalet very square so I can tell them apart. But we're looking at the corner. You can tell at the corner the resh is rounded and the dalet has a little overhang. Okay, very good. Nolan, what is that?
It's the aleph.
Olive.
Olive.
Olive,
Yeah,
correct.
I knew I was.
Correct. You know anything significant about the olive?
It's silent.
Silent. Anything else? Group?
Guttural.
It's a guttural. Okay, and we actually have rules for the gutturals in this lesson. I mentioned them last week, but they're in the lesson. We'll get to them when we get to them. So who's next? Carolina, how about this letter?
Shin.
Sheen. Very good. Yepsica?
Tet.
Tate. Tim?
Bet.
Bait.
Bait.
Exactly, yes. Heidi?
Hydrogen.
Resh, correct. Regis? Olive?
Olive.
Is it Therese?
Tyrese.
Tyrese? Olive, yes, that's correct. And Jim?
Lamed.
Lamed. Okay, everybody recognize the letter. We're good to go. If you want me to run the rest of it here, it's Hey, it's Yod. What is this?
Mim Sophie.
Mem Sophie. Very good. Final mem. That's the M sound when it appears on the end of the word. Aleph Tate, Hey, Sheen. What's this?
Mim.
Mem. Good. Anything else? This one.
Final sign.
Final Sadi. Sadi Sophie. Perfect. Thank you, Regis. Okay, you guys got a grip on the alphabet? And if you don't worry. You're going to see it every time you come in here. Okay? Remember, sometimes it takes 2 or 3 weeks for the material to solidify. And if you're a little confused when you leave class, by 2 or 3 weeks, that same material, you will have seen it again and again, and you will know it. So I feel very good. I'll look at your exercises tonight and see who has good handwriting and who might be confused. And I think we're going to be a mark in the win column for chapter 1. And that's what I want. I want 36 wins, a perfect season. We don't have a chapter that we don't understand by the time the year is out. Everybody good? Great. So I think we're good for Genesis, and we're good through our walkthrough. And now I did that in color for a reason, because today we're talking about, who knows? Vowels. Exactly. All right, let me get to my slides. Well then. Yeah. All right, and I think it's Control L. Boom. Okay. So this is Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 5. Okay? And while this is not a religious class per se, I'm exposing you to a lot of Bible, and the Bible that I chose to expose you to is on purpose. Right? Tyrese, I really hope next year that you can get up in the morning, go into your prayer room, raise up your hands to heaven, lift up your eyes, and pray the 23rd Psalm in Hebrew. I would really like that for you. If that's something that doesn't appeal to you, fine and good. Then learn the biblical language. But there is a religious application. There's no way around it. This is the Bible that we're studying. So I'm going to read this to you. And Jim, I bet you know this, so don't spoil it for everybody, okay? Va'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'kol levavcha. Slow down. Va'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'kol levavcha. Deuteronomy 6:5. Anybody know what that is besides Jim? All right, Jim, do you know?
Yes.
Yes? Not to put you on the spot
To
or anything.
record, so with your whole heart, love the Lord your God.
Oh, and you will love, there's the et. What will you love? Adonai. Did everybody read the syllabus about about God's name? We'll talk about it in a second. And you will love, what will you love? There's the et, the direct object marker. Adonai, Elohecha, your God. L'chol, with all. Levavka, your heart. Now, how did I know how to sound that out? Two ways. Two ways. If you participate in a Jewish service, you're going to hear this every time you go, or most times that you go. This is a very important verse of Scripture. It's used in Hebrew liturgy, so you're going to hear it. And so then if you grow up learning Hebrew, you can read this without vowels. To Carolina's question from last week, the Jerusalem Post is currently printed without vowels. Without vowels. And it's just that the people who are native Hebrew speakers have a good enough vocabulary that they don't really need the vowels to recognize these words. Now, not every article is vowelless. Some of them have vowels, but once you know, these are the letters. The vowels are markings which tell us how the vowel sounds should be pronounced. Okay? And they came, as we talked about last week, between 500 and 1,000 current era, common era. So 500 years after the time of Christ, then a group called the Masoretes, leave that story short, created this system of vowels and accents to help people pronounce unpointed Hebrew so that the pronunciation didn't get lost forever. So glad they did that. Okay? So that's what it looks like without vowels. That's what it looks like with vowels. Okay? This first marking is actually not a vowel, although it's taught in this chapter, the vowel chapter. It's called a Shava. That's a kametz, a patak. Dr. Barrick will call it a pathic. Okay? I'm going to go with patak. There's a Shava, there's a kametz. That's a seireh. Seireh. It's your A sound, it's a long E. That's another Shava, another chametz. This is a half vowel, a hatef segol, a half vowel. You've seen this one before, haven't you? In the same word, right here. Elohim. Why did I tell you last week pronounce it Elohim?
Elohim.
Because you don't really vocalize this vowel. It's a half vowel. It is an E, but it's got this Shava next to it. It's an unvocalized vowel. The emphasis is on the third syllable, so it's Elohim. Elohim. If you say Elohim, it's because somebody has put a capital E in an English transliteration and told you that was the word for God. They weren't wrong. It's just that this is how you pronounce it in Hebrew. Elohim. Okay?
So let me ask you a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I have been listening the Psalms, and when they pronounce Adonai, they don't write Adonai in the lyrics.
Okay, so we got to talk about the name of God and the preferred practice for this class. Okay, anybody Jewish? No. Okay, so this is the word for the name of God, which I've resolved not to pronounce in this class. I pronounce it in my prayers in the morning, but that is a holy and sacred occasion where I'm in the presence of God. About the 3rd century BC. That's out of BC is out of vogue, so we say BCE. About the 3rd century BCE, so a long time ago, in Alexandria, a set of rabbis decided that it was best not to pronounce God's name in public because they didn't want to violate the 3rd commandment, which is you will not take the name of the Lord in vain. I said the Lord right there because here's what happened. When they made that decision, and it became normative for Judaism, about that time, the Hebrew Bible was translated into Greek. And that's called the Septuagint. And they used the word kurios, Lord, in place of the name of God. So if you have a King James Bible or most English translations, this is true, and you're reading in the Old Testament and you see that the word Lord is in all capital letters, it's not the word Adonai, the word that means Lord. It is the word that is the name of God right here on the screen, but they replaced it with the word Lord, and that became the practice in the Latin Vulgate and all of our English translations, and it became normative in Judaism. Now, I don't like it. I think that everyone should know God's name, except that I am convinced that Jesus didn't use it publicly either. We find it in the New Testament. So I'm no longer on a crusade to go and tell everybody how to pronounce this name. Okay, if you really want to talk about it, we can talk about it privately, but I'm choosing to honor the Jewish practice of not pronouncing the name. And so I say, and we will say, Adonai. Now when you write it, and you're going to have to write it a lot, when you write it in an exercise, just use all capitals YHVH or LORD in all capitals. If you do either one of those things, I'll know that you mean the name. What I really prefer you not do is say Hashem, because that is a Hebrew word that means the name. Okay, for me, I find that very uncomfortable when you say it in a sentence, especially if you say, "Blessed be the name of the name." So I much prefer that you say Adonai in class and write it as either YHVH, yes, I had to think about that in English, or LORD in all caps. Questions about that? If you think I'm weird, there's lots of weird things circulating around what we should say and what we shouldn't say about God's name. And for the fact that I have a rabbi and a Jewish layperson helping me with this class, perhaps grading your homework. I've got folks who really might be offended if you decided to spell out. I might slip, but do my best not to say that name in class. In a worship context, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay? Very good. Nobody mad at me? Perfect. Okay, so here we are. Va'ahavta et Adonai, there it is, Adonai Elohecha b'kol levavka. And you will love, what? You will love Adonai, your God, with all your heart. These two words, what do they have in common?
Love it.
The Elohecha and Levavka, what do they have in common? They both end with a kaf sofit and the comments. See that? You'll see that again. Now let's see if you can pick up the meaning of that kaf sofit and that comments inductively as I just read the sentence. And you will love the Lord your God with all your heart. Nolan.
I don't want to say possession, but
Bam! That's it. This is a second person pronominal suffix indicating possession. Your God. Your heart. Excellent. That's not this lesson either, but let's get it inductively so then when we get to that lesson you go, oh, I already know that. And it'll be easy for you to assimilate that information. But what we want to focus on today is the vowels. Everybody good on Deuteronomy 6:5?
Yes, sir.
It is okay to talk in here. It really is. All right, let's talk about vowels themselves. These are your long because it's important, okay? This little red plus, this little T is called a comments, okay? And I'm going to get out of the way of the slide. And we pronounce it as in father. Don't worry about transliterations. I chose this text because I don't want you to use transliterations. Some of the other texts had transliterations almost halfway through the text. I want you to learn Hebrew, not English code for Hebrew, okay? So say this with me. Comments.
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 As in father.
As in father.
Very good. This is Sere. This is an E-type vowel, and it is the long E, but like Spanish, anybody Spanish speaker? I know we got two. Anybody else? Like Spanish, the E is pronounced like in English A-Y. Okay? Think senor. So this is Sere. 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 E as in they. A as in they. Got it? Cool. Holem. Holem. This little dot is easy to miss. Okay? And usually when I go, oh, there should be a vowel here, then I'll see the little dot. Right? It doesn't just jump off the pages. Sometimes it's tiny and my eyes are no longer as good as they were. But that little dot is called a holem, and we pronounce it long O, O as in roll. Holem. Holem. Holem.
Holem.
O as in roll. Questions about your long vowels? Let's see if we can find any of them here.
Sir. So, yeah, because I was looking at long, short, the vowels, what longs means, like long pronunciation, or why they are long.
Yeah. So I was confused about this in elementary school in English, and I'm confused about it in Hebrew. These are the long vowels. They make these sounds, right? In English, we had this rule that if there was an E after a consonant, it was called silent E, and it made the vowel a long sound, right? R-A-N, ran R-A-N-E. It matters that you know if a vowel is long or short when it comes to accenting and pronunciation. But right now, I can't get, that's all I got. Yep, that's all I got. So those are long vowels, is my answer. There are some more long vowels, which I will show you when we get to them. Okay? But these are your long vowels. An A type, an E type, and O type. Chametz, Sere, and Hola. And because they're long, they're changeable. Now maybe that's the commonality between English and Hebrew. Sometimes that chametz is going to shift and become something else. Sometimes that Sere is going to shift and become something else. Patak, A as in father. Now, if you're looking in your book, you don't have this asterisk. And your book doesn't say A as in father. Because I'm using modern Hebrew pronunciation, I had to put the asterisk here. The patak was historically pronounced at as in bat. The author of your book, if you get his CD that has a vocabulary on it, you just listen to the vocabulary 400 times. I recommend Doctors of Hebrew Letters, and you might someday want to have a conversation with somebody Jewish. And this is how modern Hebrew is pronounced, the way that I'm teaching you. But I felt like you're going to come across this sooner or later. Somebody's going to call it a pathic, and they're going to say ah. And if you listen to Dr. Barrick, he's going to say Hashemayim, like he's from Boston. Well, he's not, but that ha in the article, ha, I'm going to say ha. Hashemayim, he's going to say ha. We're friends, everything's cool, but I want you to know. And here, ah as in father. Segol, this is your short E. It's the eh sound. E as in better. Eh. E as in better. Do we have that in here? We do. We have it right here. Ha-ar-es. See that? Okay, by the way, vowels are not red in your Bible. I just use red, and the slides use red so that you can see the vowels during the vowel lesson. Okay? But that little red cluster of grapes, segol, the word segol means cluster of grapes. And there you have it. A little 3-dot cluster of grapes. Ha-aretz. It's ha-aretz, though. The metheg, or the saluk right there, tells me to accent that syllable. Ha-aretz. Everybody hear the S sound? Hear it. Hear it is the I sound. I as in bitter. Sometimes I think it's better pronounced E. And I won't be a stickler. If you pronounce a word and you think it needs to be pronounced E, see, I've listened to a lot of Hebrew speakers. And the book is great, but I've listened to a lot of Hebrew speakers. And Baraki nafshi et Adonai. Bless the Lord, O my soul. Baraki, it ends with a hirik yod, and I think that's the correct pronunciation, because every time I hear somebody who speaks Hebrew say it, that's how they say it. But for the sake of class, I is an I sound, it's a short vowel. bitter. I think the E sound I'm saying is a long I, but we're going to go with this just like it is. Hear it? I as in bitter. Kametz hatuf. Hatuf means half. Kametz hatuf. Now it looks just like the Kametz.
Exactly.
Don't worry, because if you're pronouncing Kametz ah and you pronounce the Kametz hatuf ah as in bottle, I can't hear the difference.
So, but how you know in the text that is a or?
If the Kametz is in a closed, unaccented syllable, it is a Kametz hatuf. You don't know what a closed syllable is? You probably could guess what an unaccented syllable is. Don't worry. If you're pronouncing Kametz as ah as in father, or in Kametz hatuf as in ah as in bottle, what is the difference? Context, by the way. Context is always king. All of these rules must be subordinated to the context of the text that you're reading. I think that this will become more clear when we come across a word that you know for sure is a Kametz hatuf. But the pronunciation of father and bottle is not that different in English. Not to my vanilla ears. So here we go. Kibbutz. Kibbutz. U as in ruler. U as in ruler. Now in English I would call that sound a long U. But we're going to call it a short vowel for Hebrew, okay? Okay, these are reduced vowels. See that two dots right here next to that patak? The two dots are called a, who knows? Shava, yes. Either way, okay? It's not truly a vowel. It's unvocalized. Sometimes it's vocalized, but it doesn't have a sound of its own. What this tells us is this patak has been shortened. It's already a short vowel, but now it's been shortened to a half vowel. Okay? The implications of that will be clear later on when we're having to change vowels because of the length of a word. Here we have Hatef Sagol. Hatef Sagol, yes ma'am.
So how can I pronounce in here? Irama or Arama? How you pronounce that? Ah.
Let me see this. So she has a.
This is in the vocabulary.
Yeah. What now?
The vocabulary that you have to memorize.
Good. She's got a vocabulary card. Adama. This is a vocabulary from chapter 2, right? Let me hold that up for camera. There we go. Adama. So it's spelled Aleph, and underneath it is a Hatef Patak. A Patak with two little dots, Shava. So at the bottom of the screen, I put a little notice for you. Notice, all these half vowels are barely pronounced. As in amuse. Look here. Hatef Patak. As in amuse. Is it a sound? But you don't say amuse. You just barely pronounce the A in the English word amuse, right? Amuse. So, adama.
Okay, so it's not like I.
Nope. It just barely gets any attention. It's so much so that it really loses its character as an A vowel. You're going to see this one a lot.
Because I was trying to pronounce with the vowels, and that one I was first because I don't pronounce really well the English vowels. So I was like, what is the pronunciation?
I think that you're way ahead of the curve, and I'm very, very optimistic about how well you're going to do, Jessica. That you have a vocabulary card that you've written something on, and you want to know how to pronounce it. It's a great sign. But you hadn't been taught yet. You're getting taught right now. Hatef Patak is A, but as in amuse. Sagol, A, as in metallic. Hear how I didn't give the E in metallic any time? Metallic. I don't think UH is quite right, but it helps me. It helps me. That's why I say Elohim. Because Elohim is a half vowel. It doesn't get the full time that a Sagol would get. It's a Hatef Sagol. Half of a Sagol. Elohim. Make sense? You're going to cruise right past the syllable that has this in it. You're going to say it quickly. You're going to go right to Adama. Adama. And if you say Adama, I am not going to get after you, Jessica. I'm here to teach you how to read the Hebrew Bible, not have a conversation with someone in Tel Aviv. My job is to teach you to read the Hebrew Bible. And if we come out pronunciation-wise a little different than one another, okay, fine. Me and all my teachers pronounce Hebrew differently. All of them. Dr. Perdue, that Jewish man that taught me first at the seminary, whose name I can't remember, first name was David. So he did like me, he said, call me David. Now I can't remember who he was. Right? But you're going to say, hey, remember when Chad taught us Hebrew? Who was that guy? Rabbi Lombroso. By the way, in your syllabus, I listed contact information for a rabbi in Oregon who does private lessons. His name is Patrick Lombroso, Gabriel Patrick Lombroso. He's a wonderful man, but he does charge money, and I don't. When the time comes that you want help, he's the guy. If you want to hire somebody, and he does lessons over Skype or Zoom, and I really had a great time with him. Jim's a friend of his as well. So there we go. Let's get to the last one. O type. Hatef comet. O as in commit. Commit. If I were to spell that phonetically, I might spell it C.UH.MIT. Commit. Commit. It's a half vowel. Everybody understand Hatef vowels? Half vowels? Good. Getting the north-south from Tim. So I feel like we're getting it. All right. Okay, here's a little chart to just kind of help you place these vowels that we just discussed. Okay? So the long vowels are here. You've got an A class, an E class, and a whole, and an O class. So they are comets, sere, holom, patak, sagol, hirik, comets hatuf, kibbutz, reduced vowels, half vowels, hatef patak, hatef sagol, hatef comets. Great. We're going to talk about that hatef patak and hatef sagol a little later when we talk about gutturals in this lesson. Okay, now, there are 3 letters. You want the fancy word or just plain English like I promised? There are 3 letters that are vowel letters. No, Carolina, this does not contradict the answer I gave you. But there are 3 letters in the Hebrew alphabet that are sometimes combined with a vowel pointing to form a vowel letter. Don't let it throw you. It's a whole lot easier than it sounds. Okay, one of those letters is the hey. Hey will always fall at the end of a word if it is a vowel letter. Okay? Like comets hey. There, the sound is the same, but the hey remains from the ancient Hebrew, and it was a clue to the reader that there was an A sound there, or a sere sound there, a sagol sound there. This tells you there's a vowel at the end of that word. And when you get to nouns, you'll find out that oftentimes the feminine noun is the same as the masculine noun, but there's a hey on the end. Everybody good? Okay, sere hey, still it's pronounced the same. A as in they. Sagol hey. E as in better. Holom hey. O as in roll. So the only tricky part is, take care, Nolan. God bless you. The only tricky part is that I'm going to want you to call it a sere hey if you're describing it in a word. And you might forget, and I won't get mad. Okay? Because that letter, that hey is there just to let you know that there's a vowel. Now you can see the vowel because it's pointed, and oftentimes it indicates something, like for instance the feminine. We'll get into them a peek at this moment, but these 4 vowels occur with the hey. What vowel does not occur with the hey? About your I vowel, hirik. What is your U vowel? What is the U sound? What's the name of that vowel? Kibbutz. Kibbutz. Okay. Vowel letters written with a hey are used only at the end of a word, as in Torah. Notice, Torah is a feminine noun. And Yivne. Yivne. He will build. Okay? There's a reason for that, but that's way late in the year. Everybody good on these vowel letters? I'm getting now, for the first time, I'm getting east-west head shakes and confused knitted eyebrows. So, let me try again, then you ask your question. Sometimes you're going to come across a word. Jim, how would you pronounce this right here without the hey?
Told.
To.
That's
Comments?
comments. That's to'ah.
And there's a resh there. So the vowel, by the way, always comes after the consonant sound, except when it doesn't. There's just a couple situations. I'll explain to you. But normally, to, you get the tav, and then that is actually a holum vav that you haven't seen yet. But we're focusing on this right here, this hey. To, ra, and the H makes no sound at all, right? It just tells you that it's there, that vowel is there. You say, why do they need to tell me? Because when the Hebrew was written, it didn't have vowels. Okay? This one right here, spoiler alert, we're coming up on it in a minute. That's a holum vav. It's the same thing. It's a vowel letter. What are your questions now? It doesn't make a lot of difference today. Okay? The vowel letters to Lentray doesn't make a lot of difference today. Just know that yod and vav and hey sometimes combined with a vowel pointing to be a vowel. Sometimes they're a vowel.
So the yod, when we know that is a vowel instead of
Right here. Bereshit. See, it just makes one sound. Bereshit. That yod is combined with that hirik to make that vowel. That's why we're learning the Bible first and then the grammar second, because now I can show you how you can't really fit a yah sound in there.
like for example in here bayit.
Bayit.
Bayit. Like
Bayit.
that has the dots under.
Let me take a look. Bayit
Bayit.
means house. Okay.
So we
Perfect
have
example. So you've got a yod and a hirig underneath in this word bayit.
for me it's like it's not only me by you. How?
Bayit.
So it doesn't sound the Y.
So I say it with a Y sound, but bayit is just fine. This is one vowel. These two dots, the dot and the yod together, are one
Well,
vowel.
I know that this is the letter and this is the vowel.
The vowel is usually placed under the letter, except when it's not. So the holum comes above the hirik yod. The yod is above the holum vav. The holum is above. But other than that, your vowels appear underneath the letters, just as you see here. I've got one little red dot above Elohim. That's a holum. That's it. Yep, did I answer your question? Okay, great.
Thank
Fantastic.
you so much.
Fantastic. All right. Vowel letters written with vav. There they are. Just like on the last slide, you see that word Torah on the bottom line? Everyone see Torah? Nope, you don't. Okay.
I need some soon. Okay.
Torah. There it is. It means law, instruction. Okay? Vowel letters written with hey only use the end of a word, as in Torah. See that second character is a vav, but it has a dot above it. We're going to call that a holum vav. It's just a holum. It does not have a V sound in this case. Why? Because it's just the vowel holum. Holum vav. Everybody clear? Okay. It'll become clear as you read words that have that in there. Do we have one in our verse? I don't think so. No, we don't. Okay. But there's one right there, Torah. As you read it in the word Torah, you can hear there is no vav sound to it. The vav makes a V sound as in valve. But you don't hear it. It's not tova, tovara. There's just too many consonants. That vav becomes a vowel. Torah. All All right. And then it's also true with a shurik. Shurik is u as in ruler. Okay? These are referred to as unchangeable long vowels because they do not reduce or change. You say, what do you mean reduce? Don't worry about reduction today. But this whole and vav and this shurik will not change no matter what shape the word takes. If you add prefixes or suffixes, if you put a hirik in the infix because it's in the ifil, these vowels remain the same. They're unchangeable. That's the part. That's the takeaway. But they're still pronounced O as in roll and U as in ruler. Vowel letters written with yod. I'm doing on time. My watch is so wrong.
12:18.
12:18. Great. Zera yod. You're going to see this one a lot, and it's pronounced A as in they. You're going to see that's Zera yod. You're going to see that a lot. It means something. It means something. And so watch out for it. We'll talk about it when we get there. Sagol yod, as in better. Hirik yod, E as in machine. Machine. You know what? Yepsika, thinking about by it, I don't think that's a hirik yod. I think that's a hirik and a yod. Because the hirik would be underneath the letter previous to the yod. That yod in bayit is functioning as a consonant. So it's going to be bayit. Bayit. I correct myself. Also, unchangeable long vowels. Everybody good? What will you call it if you see a sagol and a yod together? You will call it a sagol yod. If you call it a sagol, I'm going to wonder if you saw the yod or did you try to pronounce the yod. And in a case like bayit, pronouncing the yod would be the right thing to do. But here we go. That is one vowel, sagol yod. Okay. With hay, you've got comets hay, sagol hay, and seri hay. Those are E-class together. You've got holum. So let's pronounce these. Comets hay,
Comets hay.
sagol hay,
Sagol hay.
seri hay,
Seri hay.
holum hay.
Holum hay.
Now with the vav, you have holum vav and shurik.
Sure.
With the yod, you have sagol yod,
Sagol yod.
seri yod, those are your E-class, seri yod, and hirik yod. What are your questions about vowels with vowel letters? What's one thing they don't do? Change. They don't reduce, they don't change. That's correct. Okay. Boom. Boom. All right. So sometimes you're going to see what's called a defective writing. Thank you, Jessica. Rabbi Lombroso doesn't like this, but that's just the way this textbook talks about it. Sometimes you will expect to see bo with the vav, the whole vav, but it's just printed bo with no vav. That is just an irregularity in the text. It's like one writer spells it with the vav and another writer doesn't spell it with the vav. Bless you. You too. See you next week. There's David on here as an example. It is. David, look there, is a hirik yod. See the David? But over here, you're going to find it in the Bible spelled David. Sounds exactly the same. One writer included the yod, another writer did not. Don't be thrown by that. It's just that in this case, it's a hirik, and in this case, it's a hirik yod. Everybody good?
If the vowels aren't written, then why would the one on the left make a difference?
The one on the left is probably there because that letter was only there to indicate a vowel sound.
So isn't then the version on the right still correct?
They are both correct. Because you're going to find...
Is it kind of like the reduced vowel concept you're talking about? It's not really pronounced.
No, it's pronounced David. David. So let's philosophically, let's go back to Genesis. I love saying that. All right. We don't make a bunch of rules and impose them on Genesis. Okay? Because this is an old and ancient book that we don't want to change. We might make up rules for English language even today. If a new class of words were to appear in our English language, we would find a way to classify them and talk about them. But this book is what it is. So instead of the rules dictate what's correct in the text, it's the other way around. We've read the book, now we have to figure out how do we understand these patterns that we see, and the rules come secondary. If you're writing an English paper for an English professor, then you're going to be judged by the rules. But let the rules, in this case, be judged by the book. We derive our Hebrew grammar from the Hebrew Bible. It's not the other way around. Make sense? We were all trained the other way around. They told me, Chad, I before E, except after C, or as sounding as A, as in neighbor or way. So I got to memorize this, and I'm trying to spell receive, and there's a C in there, and there's a rule about that, and I get anxiety, and I get it wrong 1/3 of the time anyway, but that's where the rule is telling me what I have to do. When we find it spelled in here, we go, oh, that's misspelled. No, that's not misspelled. We derive the whole vocabulary and the grammar from the book. Make sense? Awesome. So I just need you to be aware that both of these exist in the Bible. Here you have madua. Madua, that's a great word for why. Right? Just say that to your wife really loud. See how that goes. Right? What'd you say to me? Madua. Okay, but look, madua here is spelled with a kibbutz. Madua. It's the same word. Some author says, some writer in one book of the Hebrew Bible wrote Madua with a shurik, and another wrote it with a kibbutz, but it is the same word. Pronounced the same, looks different. Everybody good? Awesome. I know, we're not in the most exciting or sexy part of the Hebrew Bible yet, but we're getting there. You got to have the Legos before you can build the castle.
So is this kind of like when we compare British English to American English type thing?
Well, no, because they're wrong.
Yes.
So sometimes the sages or the rabbis will say that a letter's inserted in a different text because it has a mystical meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to discover the mystical meaning. That's why it'll say the same word, but be spelled.
That is a whole subject unto itself. I've got a book on it. We're not going to talk about it because I want you to be able to read the Hebrew Bible at the end of the year. Okay? It's not going there. This is perhaps the biggest takeaway. Although you have to know the vowels, this guy is your friend if you make friends with him. And if you don't make friends with him, he's going to mess up your reading of the Hebrew Bible every single day. Shava. This symbol is called Shava. It's not listed in the vowel charts because it is not a vowel. The Shava does not belong to any vowel class, nor does it belong to any vowel type. Shava is a thing unto itself. Shava can be pronounced as a vocal Shava, or it can be silent as a silent Shava. Now you say that I don't have any context to put that in. How can I understand the weird thing Chad just told me about the 2 dots? You can find it right here in the first letter of the Bible. Bereshit. I didn't give that vowel an A sound, an E sound, an I sound, a U sound. Because this Shava has no vowel sound. But that date has to be pronounced somehow in this word, or you won't know that it's there. And so, the Masoretes, scratching their heads, say, how in the world are we going to tell people to pronounce the bait? Because there's no vowel sound in the bait. So they put these 2 dots here. Bereshit. Bereshit. You recognize the say, right? Ray. You recognize the here yod. Sheep. Bereshit. But see how that one doesn't get vocalized? Well, that's called a vocal Shabbat because you can hear it. Sometimes they are silent. But it doesn't really get a vowel sound, does it? I think of it like as a placeholder where a vowel should go. But it doesn't. Or in this case, this vowel was a sagol, but because we made it plural, it became 3 syllables, and we had to reduce it, and there you have the rule. I'm not going to tell you till later. And so the sagol gets reduced to a hatef sagol by putting a shava next to it. So, Elohim, it barely gets vocalized. Would you say that, Dan? Elohim. He said Elohim. You're not wrong, but you just got to know, this tells you that this really doesn't get pronounced. Yes, Regis?
Question for you. The aleph in the first one, the Barashi, doesn't seem to have any purpose but to be on the paper. Ba, Raz, B, the bet, rush,
Sheet.
and then a sheen, et is there, but I don't see the aleph.
I think it's right. But just in case it's not,
I'm trying to figure out how you would know there's an aleph in that word if you told me Barashi.
well, you're going to know the word.
Because you're going to tell me it's there.
You're going to know the word Reshit. And you're going to know that there's a inseparable preposition, bait, put on the front of it. Nope. It is not pointed at all. I thought maybe, because this is not scripture, I wrote it. Maybe I made a mistake, but no. It's a silent letter in this case.
Okay.
Ray, what it does, though, is it closes a syllable. We'll talk about that in the syllabification lesson. This closes, this aleph closes that syllable. Okay. Okay. And I've got to read that lesson carefully before I teach it, because that's not been an easy topic for me historically. I get it, but yes, ma'am.
Okay, now I'm confused because now I'm thinking of the olive as just like a placeholder.
I like it. It's a picky, finicky placeholder that has to have its own way. It refuses the Dagesh. It prefers A-class vowels. It does what it wants. It's an olive.
So we just memorize the word because it has that letter?
It's like a silent E in name.
Okay.
You know, there's a reason. I think the reason is probably that it closes that syllable. But you're going to find that Aleph does what it wants. It's a guttural. It's one of those. We're getting to that. We're going to talk about that in this lesson. You're right. It is a placeholder for a vowel. That's what I think is there. Therefore, but this time it doesn't get a vowel. Usually does, but not always. The dot. Okay, I think I might have misnamed the Dagesh last week. The dot in the bait above is called a dot. Last week I talked to you about the Dagesh Lene. The Dagesh Lene is the hardening Dagesh that changes the sound of the consonant that it's in. Remember that from last week? This dot right here in the middle of the bait is a Dagesh, and without it, it would be Va-Reshit. But it has that dot, the Dagesh Lene, which changes the sound of 6 letters, the Begad Kafat letters. However, some of them I can't really tell the difference, like the Gimel. Sometimes, so for me, sometimes the Gimel has a Dagesh and sometimes it doesn't. I know that it's one of those that can take the Dagesh Lene. But today I want to introduce the other Dagesh that looks just like the first Dagesh, and this one's called a Dagesh Forte. For example, the Hebrew word Hashemayim, sound familiar? Hashemayim has a Dagesh Forte in it has a Dagesh Forte in the sheen. It is rendered, therefore, as 2 sheens. Hash, Sham, Im. It's a doubling Dagesh. Okay, so I'm probably going to stop calling it a Dagesh Forte by lesson 5. I probably will for a little while so you hear it, but I'm going to refer to it most of the time as the doubling Dagesh. The doubling Dagesh effectively makes this word, if you're going to syllabify it, you split it down the middle because it's Hash, Sham, Im. See that? I drew the line right down the middle of the word because there's 2 sheens, one on each side. Hash, Sham, Im. But when you say it quick enough, you seldom can hear the doubling Dagesh. Hashemayim. Okay? Hashemayim. Very good. Know that that's important. The Dagesh Forte may occur in any consonant except our sweetheart Aleph and the other gutturals. Hey, Chet, Ayin, or Resh. Okay? These 5 letters refuse the doubling Dagesh. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now I have a question on the resh because in the book it says resh is only a guttural sometimes. So is there a rule for that sometimes?
Sometimes it's a really good way to describe it. It's a guttural except when it's not. Sorry. If there's a rule, I'm unaware. If there's a rule, I'm unaware. This is good enough, though. Treat the resh as a guttural when it comes to the dogish, but not when it comes to A-class vowels. Maybe that's the clarification. Okay, let's talk about gutturals. What are the gutturals? Say them with me. Aleph,
Aleph,
Hey,
Hey,
Chet,
Het,
Ayin,
Ayin,
and Resh.
Resh.
All right, here we are. These are your gutturals. How are we doing on time, Jim?
12:33.
12:33, 17 minutes. Gutturals and the resh cannot take the dogish forte. They will not accept the doubling dogish. And look, here's a perfect example, right? Where is it? Maybe not. Yeah, right here. Haaretz. This hey plus the patak plus the dogish forte, the doubling dogish, is the sign of the word V, the definite article, right? V heavens. V earth. But where's the dogish?
Well, I'll take it.
Our picky friend here, Aleph, refuses to take the dogish. And so, think of the dogish as like a little ping pong ball that if it doesn't go where it's supposed to go, it's going to go somewhere. It comes down here and this patak becomes a comments. Oh yeah, that'll confuse you. Just know, Aleph, for today, what I want you to know, Aleph will not accept the dogish. And here it is in a real word, haaretz. The word for earth, for land, is eretz. But the Aleph prefers A-class vowels. That's one of our rules. And when it refuses the dogish, guess what? The segol changed to a comments too. There's not a rule that I'm aware of that will dictate that exactly. But you'll know that this is, something's amiss because that's a comments instead of a patak. And what happens to be amiss is the guttural, Aleph, refused to take the dogish that should have gone there. Okay? Very good. Gutturals cannot take a vocal Shava. So, if this were a guttural, it could not have a Shava underneath it that is pronounced. Okay? You're not going to see it. Maybe you'll see it on rare occasion, but it won't be vocalized. You will see it. You'll see it in some verbs where a guttural is underneath the. A Shava is underneath the guttural, but the guttural doesn't like it. The guttural does not tend to have a Shava underneath it. Okay, but it can take a reduced vowel, a hatef vowel. Remember those? Hatef comments, hatef seri, and hatef segol. They can go underneath the a guttural. You'll see that. Gutturals then prefer A-class vowels. I told you those rules last week before time because I want to plant the seed so now you'll hear them in class when they're being taught and you'll remember them. What are the 3 rules about gutturals? 1, they cannot take the dogish forte. I would like to change that. Maybe I will on the slide if I ever teach this again. I would like to say gutturals and resh reject the dogish forte. Because it's not they just can't take it so it doesn't go in the sentence, it just goes somewhere else. They reject it. Okay? If there's a rock in my shoe, the flesh of my foot rejects it. And I don't want it, I won't accept it, and it gets forced someplace else in my shoe. It gets moved down into a softer part of the footbed of the shoe or something. That makes sense? The gutturals cannot take, they reject the dogish forte. They cannot take a vocal Shava. However, they can take a vocal Shava with a vowel called a hatef vowel. And you'll pronounce it, You'll pronounce that hatef vowel, Okay? Jim, you're making a face. Everything good?
I'm overwhelmed because it's about pronunciation, but at the same time it's not. So it's a little bit.
You know,
Lots of weird rules.
in a text, in a text, it's easier to grasp these rules.
Right.
Okay? Here's our friend Aleph. What has Aleph done? Aleph has not accepted the Shava that you would think would go there. Instead, it kept the Segol that was there
Right.
and added the Shava to shorten that syllable. Because that's what they call it. I said plain English, I guess I lied. That's the propretonic. It's the third syllable from the back. Elohim. And you usually can't have a full vowel that far from the back. Usually you have to have a half vowel or a Shava so that the emphasis of the word can fall at the end. Right?
Okay.
And so this is a lot. It's a lot. You don't need to know this today. You do need to know this is normal under an Aleph, or a Hey, or a Chet, or an Ayin, or a Resh. Making sense? These 5 letters, all you need to know is they cannot take a Dagesh, they prefer A-class vowels, and they can't take a Shava by itself, except when they do. Everybody good? It's enough for now that you just get that. How that plays out in words will make it clear. And honestly, it's a little bit of a frustrating concept, and then one day you go, oh. I think when I was just starting to explain propretonic reduction, where that first syllable reduces, when we get to that, I think you're going to get it. But it's too much. It's too much for today. You're already awash. You're already awash in vowels and vowel rules, right?
Here's why I'm confused. The Aleph is silent, and yet we have to take the time to do all that business underneath. And so it impacts the syllable, but not the quote-unquote letter.
I don't understand the question. Sorry, Carolina.
Okay, so let me see if I can rephrase. The impact of the vowel markings underneath is to the whole syllable in that word?
This syllable has to be a short, unvocalized vowel. For a reason that I'll explain later. This syllable, 1, 2, 3 syllables from the end, has to reduce. And since Aleph won't take just this, which is the way you would normally reduce it, right? Because it cannot take a vocal Shava, because that would be Elohim. It won't do it, so you have to have a vowel in there. Sorry for the blue. So they've got a Hatef Segol. Does that make sense?
Sort of.
Sort of.
So what's the difference in pronunciations? You said Elohim?
No difference.
Elohim?
No difference.
Okay.
It's barely vocalized. If you want to say Elohim, say it. But make sure you say Elohim. And the faster you say that, the less time you spend on that little tiny half vowel that's not really getting pronounced. Elohim. Elohim.
I guess I look at it from a reader's perspective, not sort of linguistic.
How so?
Well, because for a reader, I just look at it, someone says that says Elohim. Okay, Elohim.
Bereshit bara Elohim et hashemayim va'et haaretz. It has a rhythm, and that rhythm is created by putting the stress on the last syllable of the word when possible. The exception in this verse is right here, haaretz. Okay? Don't worry about why. I'm not even sure I can tell you with certainty, but that little metheg right there, that little saluk right there, it looks like a metheg. That little saluk right there tells me that's where the accent on that word is. Or I would say haaretz. But it's not, it's haaretz. And because it's marked in the Hebrew Bible that way, you'll know it. If you're reading in a Siddur, it may not be marked.
Right.
It may not have that.
Usually they're not. Yeah.
Right? So if you're reading someplace other than in a scholarly edition of the Bible, you may not have that little clue. But good news is, if you're reading the Bible anytime at all, you'll be able to pronounce haaretz, because whenever it's articular, meaning it has the article on it, the hey with the patak and the dagesh forte, double dagesh, it will change to aretz, haaretz. It's one of I think six words that do that in the whole Bible. Okay. How we do on time? We should be ready for vocab, right?
Go 42.
42? Great. So, to rehash That's a lot of homework to grade. To rehash for you my method, my plan, my sinister plan to get these words forever in your memory. I'm not testing you on vocabulary. I said that mostly too for our two new kids, that we're not going to have vocabulary tests. Instead, I want to spend time in the Bible. Is that the last slide? I believe it is. Yes, good. I want to spend time in the Bible. You'll learn a whole lot more in the Bible than you will if I just tell you about a bunch of symbols. Right? Was it hard to pick up all those vowels at once? It was hard, wasn't it? But if you could say this out loud, you'll be able to remember what this sound is. Bereshit. Oh wait, Ray. Oh yes, Sari. Oh yes, Hirak Yod. And if you remember the vowels in the context of a sentence that you memorize, well, now you've learned the vowels. And they're not all in there, I understand, but I think it's Zephaniah 3:8 that has all the consonants, including their final forms, in one verse. That would have been great for last week, but we ran out of time. Okay, so to repeat, what I want to do is I want to teach you as inductively as possible. So what we're going to do now is we're going to read chapter. We're going to read them aloud together. You see, well, we read half of those last week. Yes, you did. I'm going to want to try to read these vocabulary words 3 weeks. And on that third week, you'll have to use them in your lesson. So I'm trying to give you the vocabulary before you get to the lesson. Because when you're doing the lesson, I think you're going to wrestle with the grammar. I don't want you to have to go look up words in the back of your book. Right? I don't want you to have to go hunting for what the word means. Hopefully, by the time we recite it in 3 weeks, you know the word. And now all you got to do is focus on the grammar, and you can truck right along. There is a glossary in the back. We can talk about that later. For now, let me get my glasses on. Please join me on page 22. All right. I'm at the bottom of page 22, paragraph 3.12. Of. Father. Of. Father. Adon. Adon. Lord. Adon. Lord. Adonai. Adonai. Lord. Properly, that means my Lord, but it's almost never translated that way. Adonai. Lord. Adam. Adam. Man. And man in the sense of human being, not in the sense of gender. Mankind, humankind, human being. Person is a great... If you're translating Genesis, I love to call Adam the person. Until Shava comes along, and then I start using Adam as his name. Right? I love to translate Adam in the creation story as person. Anyway. Adam. Adamah. Adamah. Ground, earth. See, there's another example of aleph in the first syllable of 3 where it's reduced. Ach. Brother. Ach. Brother. Achi. My brother. Achim. Brothers. Achot. Achot. Sister. Achot. Sister. Okay, so before we go on, I want to tell you the difference between a definition and a gloss. Ever heard of a glossary? A glossary is going to have the shortest possible answer for what does this word mean in a foreign language. In the back of your book is a glossary. Please understand, this is how we get into big trouble when we start doing word studies in the church and teaching people based on the meaning of Hebrew and Greek words. The gloss is just meant to be a starting place for you to understand what the word means. You know, it may have a definition that's quite nuanced and has many different meanings. And you need to learn those over time. But for now, learn the gloss. Okay. Ish. Ish. Man. That's man in the sense of male, a husband. It can mean husband, it can mean man. Okay? Lost my place. Ale. God. Now, if someone has been transliterating that for you in English, and you think El is the word for God, it's because they're not pronouncing the Sere correctly. Okay? Ale. Eretz. Did I skip one? I did. Aim. Aim. That is mother. Emo. Emo. His mother. Elohim. Elohim. God. You need to be aware that this can also mean gods, in the plural. The Bible is an unapologetically, very consistently monotheistic book. But sometimes when referring to gods of the nations, the word Elohim is used. I am a little confused about that. Well, the plural in Hebrew can be a plural of majesty. It doesn't necessarily mean a plurality of being, although Trinitarian Christians like to read that in there, me being one. But there is a plural of majesty. It's just not good enough to call God El. He's greater than that. He's Elohim. And so that's the distinction that sometimes we have to make. We don't have capital letters in the Hebrew Bible. Otherwise, I'd say use Elohim for God with a capital Aleph, capital Aleph, Hataf Sigol, and then use a lowercase Aleph for the gods of the nations. But we can't do that in Hebrew. Okay, so just be aware. If you come across Elohim in the right context, you might figure out we're not talking about God. We're talking about the concepts of God that other nations worship. Dagon, Molech, all of those folks. Okay? Sorry for the interruption of the flow, but I think that's important. Eretz. Notice the accent is above the aleph in Eretz.
Right.
That's why the accent is on the first syllable. Eretz. Isha. Isha. This is the feminine form of the word ish. It means woman or wife. Isha. Eshet is the same. We'll talk about why some other time. Nashim, this word has an irregular plural, and there it is, Nashim. Bayit. Bayit. It's house, household. Most times you're going to hear this Beit, as in Beit Lechem, Bethlehem, house of bread, where Jesus was born. Bain. Bain. Son. In something called the contract state, which I've been dancing around here for a minute, is Ben. You're going to see Ben a lot, but the word itself, the root word, is Bain. Bain. It means son. Okay? Remember I told you see that Sarah Yod a lot? Look at Benay at the end of this line. Benay. That tells you it's masculine plural construct. That is the sons of. The sons of. That Sarah Yod is the clue. The sons of. Bat. Join in with me, please. Bat. Daughter. Plural is banot. Banot. Beautiful word. Beautiful word. Davar. Davar. Word, matter, thing. It can be used for all three of those. Lila. Notice the accent above the first lamed. It is accent on the first syllable. Lila. Night. Na'ar. 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 The boy, a youth, a servant, a young man. Even Absalom, when he was killed, it was probably 40, 35. He had children of his own. But David was concerned about the boy, about the Na'ar Absalom. So it doesn't restrict you to a specific age group. Like in America, we say a boy, we typically mean 17 and down. Right? Don't tell an 18-year-old that he's a boy, he'll get upset. But Na'ar has a wider range for age. Na'ara. Na'ara. Now look at that. That's just Na'ar, isn't it? But see that the guttural in the middle doesn't like the Shava, and so it takes a half Hatef vowel, a Hatef Patak instead. See that? There's your guttural, and when it would have been changed, it refused the Shava and took a Hatef, and it prefers an A class. So usually underneath it'll be Hatet Patak, usually underneath a guttural. Okay, so turn time-wise, how are we doing?
You didn't say day, sir.
12:52.
I didn't say what?
You said day, I didn't hear that.
Yom.
You said yom.
Yom, I missed it. Yes.
Yom.
Yom. Yom.
Yom.
Yom. And Yamin.
Yamin.
Yeah. V'shavti b'vet Adonai la'orech Yamim. I will dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life. Yamim.
Yamin.
Yom is the singular, Yamim is the plural. Beautiful, huh? Isn't that gorgeous? All right. Page 34. Okay, 34, actually it's 34. Here we go. I'm going to go fast. Goy,
Goy.
Goy.
Goy,
Goy.
nation. Goy,
Goy.
Derek.
Yeah.
Notice the accent on the first syllable. Derek.
Yeah.
Okay, just remember that word Derek. Two segols and an accent. It's called a segolate noun. We'll see it again. Derek,
Yeah.
road, way, journey. Har,
Har.
mountain, hill. Kohen,
Kohen.
Kohen,
Kohen.
priest. Lev, also spelled Levav, like in Deuteronomy 6:5. Levavcha. That's the heart, the mind, the will. Mayim,
Mayim.
Mayim. It's water. It is a plural form, but it's water. Melech,
Melech.
Melech, king, ruler. This is a huge word in the Hebrew Bible. It takes a lot of forms. You need to know it. And notice, two segols and an accent on the first syllable. It is a segolate noun. Navi, Navi, prophet. Nefesh,
Nefesh.
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 Okay, for syllables on the accents on the first syllable. Nefesh.
Nefesh.
Soul, life, person. I usually think soul, self, life, but that's probably because I took Greek first and have suke in my mind. Soul, self, life. Sus, it's a horse. Sefer, Sefer. That's a book, a scroll, a document. Eved,
Eved.
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 That's a slave, a servant. Ayin,
Ayin.
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 It's an eye or a spring. Ear,
Ear.
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 It's a city or a town. The plural is arim. Sava, Sava. Army. Get that one? That's an army. Okay? In the plural, it's Savaot. In the King James, they translated that Sabaot. Okay? It means of armies. Of the armies. So you have Adonai Savaot. This is the Lord of the armies. Okay? Chol. Chol. I'm sorry, I am mispronouncing that. Kol. There is no phlegm in the kuf. That is not like a chet. There's no phlegm in the kuf. It's just a plain K. Kol. I got that habit wrong years ago. It's plagued me ever since. Rabbi Lombroso corrects me when we read together. It's also spelled defectively without the vav. Kol. Rosh. Rosh. Head, top, chief. Please take a look at this word. Bereshit. There's Rosh. In the beginning. The head, the top, the chief, the first. Okay? Or when God first got started creating. I don't think that translation really works because of the bara. It's a Cal Perfect, but who am I to disagree with Jewish Publication Society? Right? Where are we? Where are we? Having fun. That's where we are. Rosh. Shame. Shame. Name. Name. Another reason why I'm not a fan of Hashem, because it implies a contract state, and it's not in the contract state. Hashem. Hashem. The word is shame. Baraki nafshi et Adonai l'chol karavai et Shem Kadsho. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless the name of his holiness. Psalm 103, verse 1. You will learn that psalm. You will leave this class having memorized that psalm in Hebrew. Wake up in the morning and say that to God. It's a wonderful thing. Shana. Shana. Year. The plural is shanim. Torah. Torah. It means law, it means instruction, it means teaching. And there is a difference, and you kind of need to know this word is a little bit broader than a legal category. If you read the Apostle Paul in the New Testament, you've got to understand that it doesn't just mean law like legal statutes. So catch the meaning of this word, Torah. Before the class is over, not today, but before the year is over, I will try to get you, I don't have the volume, it's out of print, it's hard to find, but if I get it, I will get the Theological Dictionary of the Old Testament that has the word Torah. I would love to have the probably 20-page article. And if I can get it, I'll get it to you. If I can get it, that's something I want to get. I'm buying those up. They've been out of print a while, and they're just not available for less than like $600 a book. So, yeah, people are really trying to make some money on an out-of-print book set. But maybe it'll come back into print soon. I can buy the new set, and it'll be good. That is all the time we have. God bless you. Learn this vocabulary. Your homework is pages 9, 10, and 11. 9, 10, and 11. Feel free to call me. My number's in the syllabus. If you got questions or problems, do try to make class. Do try to come regularly, because as much as I want to help you, and look, if you're in the Army and you got to go to the field, you got to go to the field. As much as I want to help you, it is a cumulative study. If you don't learn vowels and consonants, then you can't learn syllabification. If you don't learn syllabification, you can't learn nouns. If you haven't learned nouns, adjectives won't make any sense. So if you fall behind, I will help you get caught up, but you got to know. I got to do this chapter's work, this week's work, this week. Life gets in the way. If you got to go see your mom you haven't seen in 5 years, go see her. And when you come back, I'll try to help you get caught up, but you've got to do it sequentially, at least until we get into verbs. It gets easier once we start getting past the vowel and the imperfect and perfect stems and start getting to derived stems. Then if you miss the vowel, you can go back and get it. That'll be okay. All right? God be with you. I will see you next week.